So I think this week's episode is going to be really fun. Have tons of topics for you, but before we do get into that, man, like, what'd you do this week?
What did I do this week? We just
Yeah.
today we went on a hike for 5 miles, so I'm a little sore.
Ooh.
Did a high school football game. Did the play-by-play again, which was great. I feel like there's something you're like kind of like teasing people about, but I didn't do anything crazy. Like nothing
Oh.
too crazy. It was a good high school football game. Man, I feel bad for the kids that lost, that's for sure. But overall, yeah, week was just pretty normal. I mean, nothing too crazy. Daughter had soccer. Didn't get to go to the game because I was working a football game. But yeah, she's doing good at that sport. And other than that, just sore today. Worked out, went on the hike, played a little soccer with my daughter, did some practice, and then here for the podcast, man. Didn't watch the Lions at all. So if people were expecting like a good 30 seconds to a minute of us talking about the Lions, not going to happen. Did not watch them at all. I know that they destroyed the Falcons, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always good when the Lions win because people come in here, their spirits are a little bit higher. No, last week it was like on Suicide Watch, but just thought, we'd start the podcast off with that, Me personally.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, just like me personally, like I had a very similar week. But we both do high school sports, but I'm not biased because I don't work for a school. I work for a production company. So whatever school does well, I'm cool with it, man. So I did De La Salle and Catholic Central football game, which
Nice.
it was a pretty cool game. They played at Wayne State University, so it was a pretty good game, like East versus West Side. So always good to do those Catholic League battles, but it's kind of crazy. We both do high school sports. No one knows about it.
Yeah, I post the link. Well, I mean, I'm on the west side of the state anyway, so it's not like it's becoming better football. But a couple weeks ago, I'm not going to mention the school they were at, but they had a quarterback. He had a 64-yard pass down the middle to his tight end for a touchdown. It was incredible. But then he started doing the big ball dance. I don't know if you know what this is, where they take their hands and do this. He was playing linebacker for his team. Like he did not play all game, just came in like in the last 3 minutes, I think, in the fourth quarter. He had a sack, and then he had an interception that basically sealed the game. And the team that I do the broadcast for, they lost. But, dude, I take it so personally that even though I'm affiliated with the school, but I don't have any stake in the game. I'm just doing my job. That's it. But I was sitting there thinking in my head, I'm like, dude, this cocky son of a gun, dude. And I was like, whoa, watch your thoughts, because your mouth, it will speak what you're thinking. And I don't want to make fun of a 17 or 18-year-old kid just having fun, but I just want to let him know, if you do watch this podcast, I was up in the booth, and when you did the big ball dance, you offended me. And yeah,
17-year-old getting under your skin, but
oh, dude, oh man,
that's funny. That's funny. Some of these high school kids, the celebrations they're pretty crazy. But you guys come here for Pistons talk. Obviously, you come here for NBA topics, and we have a great show planned out for you guys today. We're gonna start with it. I feel like I want to take a victory lap because we talked about Buddy Hield last week, and I said wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Pacers tried to flip him for DeAndre Hunter. You gave me a crazy motherfucking look, by the way. You're like, the fuck is he smoking? But first topic of the show, you asked, should the Pistons trade for Buddy Hield? So I'm going to give you the floor. Lance, should the Pistons try to get one of the best sharpshooters in the NBA in Buddy Hield?
Okay, I do want to say something real quick. Did you know that Buddy Hield has never been to the NBA playoffs in his career yet? 7 years, never played in the playoffs. It's unreal. Like, it seems like every team he leaves, they eventually they make the playoffs. I don't know if it's like the next year or within the next 2 seasons, but Indiana, they are right on the verge of being a playoff team. They were close last year. I think they had like 35 wins, somewhere around there. I don't know why he wants out of Indiana. You got an up and coming point guard in Tyrese Halliburton that is not only a scorer, but it's also a playmaker. What kind of elite sniper wouldn't want to play with that guy that's always looking for him? I do not get why Buddy Hield wants to leave Indiana. Maybe, I mean, he's only 30 years old. He's not like at the twilight of his career. This guy probably has another good 6-7 years left in his career before he just kind of becomes guy sitting on the bench. But he is an elite sniper. He knows his role. He, in my opinion, would be an upgrade on the perimeter for the Pistons. I think you could start him along with Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. They all have decent size. They're all 6'4", all 215 or more. They got good size for the perimeter. He would create so much space for Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham to operate. He averaged 43% and made 288 threes last year, shooting 43% from the three-point line. In my opinion, he's a huge upgrade. I think he would be better than Bojan and Alec Burks. I know they both provide something a little differently, but he is one of the best shooters in the NBA. And I know what Bojan did last year, and I know how much we all love Alec Burks and everything, but if you could get a guy like Buddy Hield in the type of offense he brings to a team, yeah, I think you have to try to find a way to bring him in. And he's only 30 years old, and I think he only has – I want to say he only has like 2 years left on his deal, so it'd be a large amount of money coming off the books as well when you're ready to sign the young guys. But what are your thoughts? Buddy to Detroit or no?
So I'll give you my Buddy to Detroit answer, but as always, I do take some notes for each individual topic. So kind of break down what Buddy Hield is, how old is he, contract-wise, whatever. So Buddy is 32 years old right now. I think a lot of people forget that he played college all 4 years at Oklahoma. So he's 32. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2024. So next season, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. Gotcha. Now, to your point, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. He shot 42% from three this year. Now, listen to me when I say this. On 8.5 attempts per game. Yeah. 42% from three, 8.5 attempts a game. That's elite. I don't care what you say. That's elite three-point shooting. Now, I think my problem with Buddy is he wants a contract extension. That's why the Pacers are deciding to trade him. They don't want to commit long-term money to a guy that's 32 years old, and I'll be 36 when his contract does expire. Now, does he have a game that will age, gracefully throughout that contract? Probably, but do you really want to be paying somebody, I'll just ballpark here, 20, maybe 26 mil a year just to be a three-point shooter? I don't know. I think that's a big reason why the Pacers are looking to trade him, as Shams Karani did report this week. I do have a hot take for you. I think he's going to be involved in the Damian Lillard trade, personally.
Okay.
I don't know where he's going to go. I think he's just going to be a filler piece with this Damian Lillard trade that's probably going to happen. And the reports say maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Training camp's I think 2 weeks away, so probably sooner than later. But as for the Pistons, I just don't think they should. It would be a 1-year rental, and then you kind of have to decide whether or not you want to give this guy long-term money. And we saw a shooter like Cam Johnson, what he got this year. He got over $100 million. You're probably going to have to pay the same for Buddy Hield. Not to say he's not worth it, because I do think he is. I just think when you look at the shooting guard position on this team, like you said, you have Alec Burks, you have Jaden Ivey. You could even put Marcus Sasser in there if you want, because, even Marcus Sasser has said, I don't really see myself as a point guard or a shooting guard. I can play both. But I think for the Pistons standpoint, you shouldn't get involved in that. But I do think he's going to be a fill-in piece for this Damian Lillard trade, because it could be possibly a 3 to 4 team trade. And I think it's just going to be utter chaos.
But I mean, if you could get him for 18, if you had, I guess signing him to an extension would kind of suck. But I do think his game is going to age super well. And I think he's going to be, but I did just say he's never been to the playoffs. And every time he leaves the team, they do make the playoffs. And I'm looking at it. Yeah, he leaves Sacramento. They make the playoffs the following year. Indiana, they're right on the cusp. I don't know. If you're the Pistons, you take him for a year, you don't make the playoffs, and then you're a playoff contender. That just seems what it is. That's like the gift that gives you, kind of like Jahlil Okafor gives you the number 1 overall pick when you have him on your team. You get the playoff with Buddy the following year. I don't know. He's not a good defender, though. That's one thing that sucks about his game. Like, if he's not hitting shots, what else does he bring? I was watching some clips of him. He can put the ball on the floor, but his game, he takes more threes than he takes any other shot. Like, doesn't get to the free throw line a good chunk, even though he does. Is a career 86% shooter, but it's only at 1.5 attempts per game. He's a sniper, but if he's not sniping, he's just buddy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, I would take him though for the Pistons.
I could respect that. You know, you want to surround Cade Cunningham and company with perimeter shooters like a Buddy Hield. But I think in the back of my mind, Jaden Ivey shot 35% three in his rookie season.
Yeah.
Alec Burks was close to 40%, I believe, this season. You traded for Joe Harris, who's a 40% three-point shooter. Then you have Bojan. This team has three-point shooting, and that's one of the skills that Buddy Hield is elite at. So I think from that standpoint, I would probably pass. But I'm not mad at you for saying I would trade for Buddy Hield because he's an excellent player. I just think the Pistons, at this state of where they're at currently, taking a 1-year rental on a guy that you may lose in free agency, it just isn't worth it. Like if they were like an 8 seed, for example, last year, and they wanted to, try to push for the playoffs and have a guy to be a knockdown 3-point shooter, I'd have no problem with it. But they're still in the phase where they're trying to not finish 15th in the Eastern Conference. They're trying to get to possibly a 10 seed, make that play-in tournament. So I think for me, I would pass, but I still believe he's going to be part of some big trade with Damian Lillard. And who knows when that's going to happen, man. It seems like every other day we get, more reports that the Heat aren't going to get him and the Raptors might get him. This crazy stuff.
Yeah, I heard that trade was supposed to be done within 48 hours, and I believe that was 2 days ago. I forget who tweeted out, yeah, the trade is going to be done. And I wanted to – there's so many times I bookmark a tweet where I'm like, I'm going to call this person out, but I never do it. And I wanted to because, like, there's just some things that seem so obvious where I'm like, I don't even know why you would say that. Like, that's never going to happen. Where do you think Buddy lands, though, in a trade? You think he goes to the Western Conference team, or do you think he stays in the East?
So, assuming that, this I'm going to bring Damian Lillard up again. Assuming it is a 3-4 team trade, I could see him landing in Toronto. So I'm going to say Eastern Conference. Like I said, it's just he's a player where I feel like when you look at the money and you look at these big max contracts, he's not making a whole lot. So I'm going to go Eastern Conference. What about you?
I was going to say the Western Conference. I was going to say either the Phoenix Suns or the Los Angeles Lakers, because Los Angeles Lakers makes too much sense with like LeBron James, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Davis, guys that they need that space. You give them a shooter and it's heaven for those guys. But Phoenix, like it just seems because DeAndre Ayton I've been hearing is like supposed to be in the Damian Lillard trade too, where he can end up in Portland and then Nurkic could end up in either Phoenix or he could end up in Miami along with Damian Lillard or something like that. And if they're looking for multiple teams, Buddy just seems like he'd be a good fit. A guy that, again, doesn't need the ball, but a guy that just creates space with his shooting for guys like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. I think that would be a huge piece for them, especially since they're so top heavy. Just add one more talent and, you just shore up the depth. You don't need depth. You just need 5 guys that are really good. And Buddy, he'll be one of those guys. It always works for teams like that.
If he ends up in Phoenix, I'm just saying, when's enough? How much talent do you need, man? But I did hear the same rumors with you about DeAndre Ayton possibly getting swapped for Yusuf Nurkic in Portland, which I think would be an upgrade. Nurkic over Ayton because Nurkic to me I think is more sound defensively, but Ayton's very talented. But we'll see what happens with this Damian Lillard stuff, man. It seems like every time I read, like, oh yeah, it's going to happen tonight. It's going to happen tonight. And it's just not happening. So apparently it's the Blazers. They're just holding everything up.
And people are like posting 2K clips where they're talking about Damian Lillard to the Heat. It's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's probably been the most stale like big trade rumor I can remember in recent months. It's just like, just make the damn trade already. I think everyone's sick of hearing it.
Yeah, same. I would like to hear this. Give me that Woj bomb before the season starts. That's what I want. But let's move on to news. So we got some quotes for you guys. We got one from Rip Hamilton I'm about to deliver to you guys. He speaks highly on Monty Williams. He says Monty's going to bring an identity to this ball club. Monty was a hard-nosed guy as a player and a great defender who brought his lunch pail each week and every day came to work. I will say this. I love that they're speaking positively about Monty Williams. And I'm happy that former players they're happy with the direction the Pistons are going recently. Like, there's nobody being outspoken saying, oh, this isn't the right move. What happened to the old Pistons, whatever. They're making good moves and I'm enjoying it. And I'm glad that these guys are speaking on it. But in my opinion, could he not have delivered a more generic quote of a former player turned coach? Like, it just seems like when you don't know something about a guy and he was a role player in the NBA, you're like, yeah, he was the lunch pail guy. He would come to work every day. It's like, all right. I mean, you could say that about Frank Vogel. You could probably say that about Phil Jackson and some of these other coaches, but that played in the NBA. And it's just, I don't know. I wish there was a little bit more from the quote, but what are your thoughts on it, man?
I got to give a shout out to my guy Corey Woods, who this is from his article. He caught up with Richard Hamilton when he got inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame last week.
Okay.
And they were talking about Cade Cunningham, Coach Monty, all that stuff. You guys can check it out at mlive.com if you guys do want to read it. But when I read this quote, I thought it would really resonate with fans. Because when you think of Richard Hamilton, you think of the Go in the Work Pistons, and you think of them bringing their lunch pail, competing for 48 minutes night in and night out. And I think what Rip was trying to say is Monty's going to instill a culture and an identity for the Detroit Pistons. And that is something that the Pistons have kind of lacked. No shout out to Wayne Casey, but the Wayne Casey team had no identity and no culture, in my personal opinion. He had 1 year where, he made the playoffs with Blake Griffin, but I think we can both agree we made the playoffs because of Blake Griffin, not because of Dwayne Casey's coaching. And I think Monty Williams is really going to, change the way that we watch Pistons basketball. It's not going to be, stagnant ISOs in the corner for, 18 seconds. There's going to be ball movement. We've talked about it before. His 0.5 offense that he wants to bring from Phoenix to Detroit. And I think you're going to see a lot of, player movement, a lot of ball movement. And it's just going to be such beautiful basketball to watch. And I think a lot of Pistons fans, it's going to be refreshing to watch because you haven't seen that. You didn't see that with Dwayne Casey. You didn't see that, player movement. You didn't see that ball movement. I think that's what Rip was trying to say, even though it did kind of sound like an AI, like you put it in the chat GPT. And it's like, okay, give me like a quote from Richard Hamilton. That's what it kind of sounded like. But I think that's what Rip was trying to say. Like, Monty's going to be really good for the Pistons. He's really going to change the culture here. He's going to build an identity with this young basketball club and, just help them get to that next level, which I think both of us are really happy, with the hire and what he can possibly bring to this team.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited about it. I can't wait for the season to start. I do wish that he would have touched on like what he thought the identity would be for the Detroit Pistons, other than just like, a hard-nosed style of play. Like, I get that. I feel like Monty's going to have these guys, in better prepared. Again, no offense to Dwayne Casey, but he did deal with a lot of injuries, but we're not going to get into that. I just think he will have them better prepared. He'll have them sharper defensively and have them running a competent offense in the NBA. And I just feel like there will just be better decisions when it comes to player management during the game. Like, we won't be after the game scratch our head, be like, well, why did he do this in the third quarter? Why did he do that in the fourth quarter? Like we always were with Coach Casey. So again, I am very excited for Coach Monty Williams, and it's going to be a fun, exciting year. I just wish Richard Rip Hamilton had just said a little bit more about Monty Williams and the hire. That would have been really cool. But I get it. You know, you want to keep it short and sweet. You don't want to deliver a sound bite where it could be used against you or anything. You know, I just wish there was a little bit more to the quote.
For sure. We can move on to the next topic, and we are going to play a video on screen. This does come from Amari Sankofa, and he was talking with Jaden Ivey about Cade Cunningham, and then we're going to get into this right after this clip.
Next season, I think a lot of people are going to be shocked what he's bringing to the floor. He's going to have a special season this season for us. We're kind of riding his coattail, just trying to feed off him. He gives us a certain energy that we need to get this team going. And he brings that from the day when he was here, the day when he got drafted. He brought that for us. So we're going to continue to ride off him and feed off him.
So I know the audio is kind of a little bit not the best sounding quality, but basically Jaden Ivey said Cade Cunningham is going to shock a lot of people. He's going to surprise a lot of people. So my question to you, Lance, is, are you surprised that Jaden Ivey is going out and saying like Cade Cunningham is going to shock Pistons fans and shock NBA fans?
No, because I think he knows why Cade Cunningham was the number 1 overall pick. He gets to see him every day work and, just try to get back and get healthy to play this upcoming season. So he sees everything that he's putting in day to day. He sees what type of player he is. He's already played on the court with him at the Rico Hines, or something we've talked about a few times. So he already knows what kind of impact Cade will have from that point guard position. And Jaden Ivey's a smart player. He's a high IQ athlete where he knows that Cade Cunningham is going to make his job a lot easier, where he's going to have to focus less on certain things and put more of his attention in other areas of his game, and he's going to thrive. And that's just what it sounds like is coming from Jaden Ivey's mouth when he talks about Cade Cunningham to me, at least when I heard that.
It's so funny about April. You see all this slander towards him. You see, is Cade Cunningham a bust?
Yeah.
And then, the Team USA Select stuff happens, right? And we hear that he's dominating the competition. He's dominating Jalen Brunson, who just got paid. He's making Tyrese Halliburton look bad. And then you start seeing the media, kind of change their tune a little bit, right? We've talked about top 10 Bleacher Report articles of where they think Cade Cunningham is going to be a top 10 NBA player. We've talked about multiple media outlets, not this Bleacher Report, ESPN, CBS Sports, Clutch Points. All of them are just kind of saying like, wait a minute, there's something there. There's something different. Now, being Pistons fans, we get to watch it night in and night out of how great of a basketball player he was. And I think what Jaden Ivey is saying is like he's getting back to his old form. He's getting back to his old self. And I think we all knew Cade Cunningham was a franchise player when we drafted him. That's why he went first overall in his draft class. He's a generational talent. I still think if you had to do it all over again, you're still picking him first overall. I don't care what the this injury history. I'm not even going to call it injury history. He had surgery this year and he played 12 games. And from what I've heard, a lot of people saying he's getting back to his old self. He's getting back to the Cade Cunningham that he was during his rookie season when he was putting up monster numbers. So not surprised that Jaden Ivey said this. This got me excited as a Piston fan. Gets me excited that, training camp is less than 2 weeks and, basketball season starts in October. Makes me think that this team is going to shock people. Not this Cade Cunningham. The Detroit Pistons are going to shock a lot of people this coming season.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of, I think Isaiah Thomas commented on Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, talking about how they could be a special backcourt. I think Rip Hamilton has also commented on the backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. I think this backcourt is going to be extremely special. I know the past couple of podcasts that I have said, like, the hero ball thing bothers me about Jaden Ivey. But again, I think he's a smart player. I think I'm not too worried about it. And I know I've said he would be, I think a couple of episodes ago, I said he would be the guy from the young core that I would trade, but again, just answering the question, I don't want to get rid of him. But the reason I think this is going to be such a special backcourt is because you rarely get two players whose games fit so well. Like they kind of remind me of James Harden and Russell Westbrook when they were in Oklahoma City, where you had James Harden, the more cerebral player, the playmaker, didn't care about his numbers, didn't care about the shots he put up, just cared about winning, cared about putting the guys in the right position. That's Cade Cunningham. And then Jaden Ivey, just that uber athlete that can attack the rim, finish through people, over people, under people. Now he's developing a shot. He's learning how to control his speed in the game. I think you rarely ever get that. And when you do get it, you get an NBA Finals appearance as a young team like Oklahoma City had. So that's what I'm excited for. That's why I think this backcourt is going to be really special. And I think Omari Sankofa had written an article too where Jaden Ivey talked about how he thinks he can take a defensive leap next year. That's something we've talked about on this podcast months and months and months ago when Cade Cunningham gets healthy. I think when he gets healthy and he's on the floor, we're going to see a totally different Jaden Ivey. We're going to see more of a scorer Jaden Ivey. We're going to see less of a playmaker, in my opinion. And I think that's a good thing overall. I think the less Jaden Ivey has to focus on setting teammates up and being the point guard or being a playmaker for this team, you'll see his scoring and his efficiency go up. But also on the defensive end, you're going to see him become, I don't want to say elite quite yet, but I think he is going to take a massive leap defensively this year when he doesn't have to focus on playmaking and being a point guard, when he can just, because with Cade and Asar Thompson, even the coaches are going to draw plays for Jaden Ivey just to, where they can put him in position to let his athleticism and his skill set thrive. I mean, if I'm Jaden Ivey, I'm salivating playing next to two playmakers like Cade and Asar Thompson, where I'm like, oh, you just want me to come off the screens and attack, and these guys are going to put me in the best position possible to succeed in doing that? Oh, man, I'm going to be an A-plus defender for you this upcoming season. And I really do think that's what we're going to get from Jaden Ivey. But what in your mind makes this backcourt special? I know I just went on a long rant and everything, but I do want to hear your thoughts on
that. I think when you look at the great Detroit Piston backcourts in history, you look at Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas. Then you go, a few years later with Chauncey Billups and Richard Hamilton. I think Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey can be that third great Detroit Pistons backcourt. And those first two backcourts that I mentioned, they won championships. And I think very highly of both of these guys. I think Cade Cunningham, to me, he could play any position and he's going to make anyone else on the team better. He's just that type of player where when you watch him play, he'll average 20 when he could average 30 because he wants to get his teammates involved. That's the type of player he is. It's almost like LeBron-ish, where we know LeBron could probably average 35, but he'll average 27 so he can, involve his teammates. I think Cade Cunningham is cut from the same cloth in that aspect. And for Jaden Ivey, I was so high on Jaden Ivey. Even before we started this podcast, I told you, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons look to draft Jaden Ivey because he's just one of those rare athletes that you don't really see too often. And what I saw from him last year, from October to April, the progression and development and the time that he put in to get better as a basketball player, you're not supposed to do that your rookie year. You're not supposed to come in and just get that much better. Like, we both talked about, hey, can he learn how to control his speed? He did it. Hey, can he become a three-point shooter? That was a knock on him coming out of college. He did it. 35% from three his rookie year. That's excellent. So I think this backcourt has the potential to be the next great backcourt for the Detroit Pistons. I think it has the chance to be very special. Now, obviously, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey haven't played a whole lot of games together, but they're willing to make it work. They're willing to put in the work, and I absolutely love hearing that from both of them. They want to succeed here in Detroit, and I think they will. They have all the talent in the world, all the potential in the world, and you have a coach that has done it with other organizations when they weren't the best. He did it. It wasn't the Bobcats. I think it was the Charlotte Hornets. He did it with them with Chris Paul. Then he did it in Phoenix with Devin Booker and company. I think, Monty can do the same thing with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, and I think the team's future is so dependent on these two making it work out for the Pistons. Like, I think truly the Pistons will only go as far as Cade Cunningham takes them. but they will reach a whole nother stratosphere if Cade and Jaden Ivey figure this out and make it work in the backcourt for years to come. Like, as long as those two click, it doesn't matter if Dern and Asar are on this team or not. And it's no offense to those guys. Those two are great young players, and they're going to be amazing in the NBA. But it really does come down to Cade and Jaden Ivey. If these two can make it work, they will be – I strongly believe the Pistons will be at the top of the Eastern Conference just because of Cade and Jaden Ivey, because their games just blend so well. I think we're going to see, and I'm going back to the Oklahoma City, the James Harden, Russell Westbrook comp. I think we're going to see what those two could have been if they had just been able to stay together for majority of their career. We're going to see that in Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. We may not see the individual success from these players, but we're going to see what it's like when you put the individual stuff behind you and you just focus on the team and winning and trying to get championships. We're going to see it from these two, and it's going to be incredible, man. This is like, man, I feel it feels so cool because, like, there are times when I would look back on the Bad Boys, that whole 80s Pistons era, and I'm like, you get kind of jealous because you're like, man, you got to see Isaiah Thomas get drafted. You got to see Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, all these guys. And then you finally, over years, you finally see them figure it out and they reach the pinnacle. We're going to get to see that with this young core. We're going to get to see it. And it's so exciting. And I just cannot wait. Like, just talking about it now is exciting, but talking about it 3, 4, 5 years from now is just going to be amazing. It's going to be so.
This is the most young talent the Detroit Pistons have ever had. I mean, you look when they go into work crew when, you know, that era was over from like 2009 to, let's say, like 2018, 2019. You know, we missed on draft picks. We tried to compete for 8 seeds when, you know, we had no business doing that. We should have rebuilt a long time ago. But, I mean, you look at the core pieces. You have Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren. Like, those are your building blocks. Think about that for a second. All you're really missing is, a power forward as a building block. Maybe that'll be Isaiah Stewart. We're going to have to wait and see. But, like, this team's future is incredibly bright. I know a lot of Pistons fans, they want to win now. They want to make the playoffs. I know what's going to come. This team is really going to be set up for long-term success. This is going to be a team that is going to be in the playoffs each and every year. And I think Pistons fans will just expect it. You know, if they make the playoffs one year, they're going to expect it each and every year.
So let's get into that. So Cade Cunningham, he has his goals for this upcoming season. He says, I want to take a leap for next year and get closer to being a championship caliber team. I think man, let me just ask you, because I want to first hear your thoughts and then I'll jump in on this. But what do you think Cade has to do to lead the Pistons to a championship? Look, we're kind of just flirting with it when we were talking about the last topic, but like, what do you, I mean, I've thought about it a little bit, but what do you think he has to do to lead the Pistons to a championship?
I think the quote in itself, I love hearing that, by the way. But to answer your question, what does Cade Cunningham have to do to lead the Detroit Pistons to get their next NBA championship? Just be himself, because I think he has all the tools to be a franchise player for this team. Obviously, you want him to develop and get better each and every year, and I think he will. He's just that type of player. But you just need him to stay healthy, be that leader, be that guy, and, you know, make your teammates better. And I think he has all those qualities. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, we're in the Eastern Conference Finals in a couple of years from now and, you know, we're hearing, you know, can Cade Cunningham, you know, get the Pistons to the NBA Finals? Because I think it's going to happen. He's just that special of a player. It's just, you got to stay healthy. I need him to stay healthy. I need him to play at least 70 games this year. I really do. Because I think that's what you're going to need out of him. Is if he can stay healthy and just do what he does, dude, this will be a team where, you know, Cade Cunningham might be a top 5 player in the NBA because, like, we saw him his rookie year putting up like 26 and 6. Like, come on, man. Like, the rookies aren't supposed to do that. And he's getting stronger. You know, he plays both ways. He's a good defender. He can get you, you know, 25 on any given night, and he can involve his teammates. Like, that's a franchise player to me. So I think if he just stays healthy, he keeps developing each and every year, the Pistons will win a championship with Cade Cunningham if he does stay healthy.
I think health is the number. That's the most important thing. Health is the most important. I would say taking a leap as a defensive player, setting the tone defensively for this team, that will be another leap he has to take. And I'm not saying he has to be a defensive player of the year candidate. I want to make that very clear because I think some people will hear that and be like, oh man, you got to be the best defensive player. That's a lot. That's a tall order to ask Cade Cunningham. No, I just want him to continue doing what he's doing defensively, stay in front of guys, make things difficult, and just continue to do that. And then I would also say just continuing to be the playmaker he is, controlling the pace, not just racking up assist numbers, but putting guys in a position where they will succeed, where they will thrive in. And then the killer instinct. Like we talk about this with some players, developing that part of his game. And we did see this his rookie year. We saw it against the Cavs when he went 0 for 10 in the first half. And I think I don't know if he had a triple-double or he was like right on the cusp of having a triple-double, but he won that game. And then I think it was the Brooklyn Nets against Kevin Durant where he went just nuclear and just took over in the final 4 minutes and won the game. That's the killer instinct you want to see from Cade Cunningham. And I think that's the next part of his game that's also going to develop. And if all those three things continue to develop and they go the way they're supposed to, that's what he will do to lead this team. That's the individual stuff. It's not the awards. It's none of that. It's not being the top scorer in the NBA. It's just being a playmaker, setting the tone defensively, and then knowing when to shake off all of your teammates and say, no, I got this. Let me put the team on my back and let me win a game for you guys. And that's what I think we're going to get from Cade Cunningham. But if all those things fall in place, man, he's leading us to a championship. And it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, he's a franchise player, and that's what number one overall picks are supposed to be. They're supposed to be franchise players, and I think he already is one. Like, he's incredibly young, but the way he talks, you would think he's a 10-year vet. He's so mature beyond his years. I'm 31, and I'm not that mature, dude. Like, it's crazy. Like, he's so mature for his age, and I absolutely love that. I love the leadership qualities that he has, and being so young, but it gets me excited for the future because I know he's that guy.
When do you think what year for Cade Cunningham do you think they start making the playoffs? I know we kind of talk about maybe being a play-in team, but also it seems like that's not going to happen for the Pistons this year. But do you think it'll happen when the Pistons become a regular playoff team, like meaning every year they're going to the playoffs? Do you think it happens in his fourth year, his fifth year, his sixth year? When do you think it happens in Cade Cunningham's career?
I think for this year, they could make the play-in. But I will say, I think going into not this season, but the previous season, I think they could easily be a top team in the Eastern Conference. I think they could easily be an 8 seed because the talent's there, and you're going to have more cap space, and guys are going to develop, and you'll probably bring in more veterans because we both know Bojan's not going to be on this team forever. You'll probably bring in more vets to help this team win. So I'll probably say not this season, but going into maybe 2025, like 2026, they'll regularly be a playoff team. They'll be a top 8 team in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. So I said fifth year. That's what I wrote down. So you're thinking the fifth year too?
I'm thinking fourth year. I'm thinking fourth year. They'll be a top 8 team in the Eastern Conference. Okay. Because you just have so many young pieces on this team, and you're going to have veterans that they're going to want to come play in Detroit. And I know, like, I kind of sound like a slappy right now, but like they're going to want to play for Coach Monty Williams. The Pistons are adding a lot of former NBA players to their coaching staff, and they even added a scout that's a former player, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But like, there's something brewing in Detroit, and I think players are going to want to play for a city like the Detroit Pistons, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, dude. It's coming. When it's like And it's not going to be just washed up veterans. It's going to be veterans that can contribute and actually help this team get to the pinnacle, which is a championship. Like, I still remember those days where like Antonio McDyess signed with the Pistons. That was cool to see, where he was still serviceable. Chris Webber ended up coming over to Detroit, Nazir Muhammad, just guys like that where you're like, man, you could probably go to another team and probably play 32, 34 minutes a night and kind of be one of the guys. But here you are in the Pistons taking a lesser role, taking less money just to try to help this team win another championship. And that is pretty cool. This next topic though, man, I don't like talking about this guy. I'm just going to be honest, but I know you had a clip to play for us. So,
okay. So, Brian Windhorst was on his podcast and they were talking about Cade Cunningham and Sarah Thompson. So we're going to put the clip on the screen for you guys real quick and we're going to talk about it after.
Yeah. You guys know how I feel about Cade Cunningham. I think it's breakout year potential for him for sure.
It's interesting you said that. I was actually with him about let's say a month and a half, and he just got back and it was his first time playing. So we were playing pickup in an open run at Duncanville, and he looked good. He looked really good. He's almost back to the old Cade Cunningham. His pace has gotten so much better. And I got a chance to talk to him about Asar, and he said he's excited because of the defensive ability that he brings to the team. And I think that him saying that is basically who the Thompson twins are. When you look at both of them, I think they will be extremely successful no matter where they are because of their ability to change the game defensively. With their athleticism, the way that they move their feet, they can stay in front of the ball. They have great hands. Despite their offensive woes, offensive flaws, defensive, they can always be on the court. I think over time you will see them grow on the offensive side. But Asar kind of plays that role of just come in the game and just get stops. Help us defensively, because when you look at a Bojan Bogdanovic, you look at a Joe Harris. I mean, even there's times where Cade he has potential to be a great defender, but he's not there yet. So defensively, that team needs help. And he fits a role where he can actually go in there and help them. Well, he might not give them much shooting the ball. I mean, he might have his games every now and then. He might improve because he's a hard worker. He wants it. But defensively, he'll be able to fit a need that Detroit has.
So we're going to get into the Asar stuff, but I know that we've talked about Cade probably for the past 20 minutes, and that's absolutely fine. But I do want to get into Brian Windhorst's comments saying that this is a breakout season for him. So my question to you is, what would a breakout season for Cade Cunningham be for you? Is it more wins? Is it averaging more points? Or just being that team leader that the Pistons need?
Breaking out for me would be having a 24-7-7, something like that, or 26, whatever you want to give them. More of an individual season, like putting the points up, racking up the rebounds and assist numbers, and also making an all-star appearance. I think that would be a breakout season for Cade Cunningham. Doing the individual stuff that make you stand out from the rest of the pack, but then also being nominated to be an all-star. But, dude, there's just a couple of things I just want to comment real quick. I like when people are saying, like, Cade Cunningham's getting back to his old self. I don't want him to get back to his old self. I want him to be better than his old self, because his old self is just his rookie year that we saw. So I know they mean other things, and I'm trying to be just a little funny, but like it always cracks me up. But also with Brian Windhorst, I just got to say, dude, I don't know. I've never heard him say anything about Cade Cunningham. I haven't listened to his podcast in a really long time, and I don't watch the national shows he has. So I will have to say, like, whatever he said about Cade Cunningham, I guess he said it. My thing is, don't jump on the wagon now. You already made fun of Detroit a few months ago, and it pissed me off, and it pissed a lot of other Pistons fans off when you said the Pistons organization made a desperate move to sign Monty Williams, and now you want to be on the Cade Cunningham train? No. Where were you last year after the 12 games before he got hurt? That's when you should have said something positive about Cade. I don't remember hearing anything positive about Cade Cunningham coming from his mouth. But now after the Team USA stuff and everybody else is talking about Cade in a positive light, now you want to chime in? That's a joke, and it just annoys me. And I hope I would be perfectly okay with the national media staying away from the Detroit Pistons. They do not deserve to cover them. They do not deserve to watch them. They do not deserve to talk about them because they have not said anything positive. They've all made these crappy jokes about the city of Detroit, the Detroit Pistons organization, the fans, and the players, and they don't deserve it. They do not deserve what's coming in Detroit to be able to talk about it. It just bothers me. But anyways, back to the breakout stuff. Sorry to go on the rant. But again, just to reiterate, the breakout would be individual numbers. I think Cade Cunningham will have a 24-7-7 season. But to add on to that, if he makes an all-star game, that will be Cade Cunningham's breakout coming out season. But what about you?
So I love that you keep receipts because Brian Windhorst was making fun of the Detroit Pistons for going after Monty Williams. That is a fact. He went on NBA radio and said the Pistons look desperate.
Yeah.
What I will say is this, and I told you about a month ago, before all this happened. I said, the national media is going to be praising Cade Cunningham left and right. Just wait for it. It's going to come. And I'm not surprised that they're jumping on the bandwagon. I absolutely love this for Cade Cunningham because he deserves it. I'm not going to say, I don't want ESPN to cover the games. I think it's good not only for the city of Detroit, but it's good for the Detroit Pistons organization. And it's good for the casual fans who maybe they don't watch a whole lot of Pistons games, and maybe they watch a game where Cade goes off for 30 points and they're more tuned in. Maybe they turn into a Pistons fans because of that moment. That's just how, these big market teams work. Like, we're not the Lakers. We're not getting, 40, 50 games nationally televised on ESPN and ABC. We're lucky if we get one or two, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So I don't have a problem with him saying, he's going to have a breakout season. But for me, what a breakout season would be is making the All-Star team. Being one of the best players in not only just the Eastern Conference, but the entire NBA.
Yeah.
And I've told you, I don't think he's going to average 24-7-7. I think his assists are going to be through the roof. I think Cade is probably going to average maybe 23, 11, and 7. I think with Monty's system, where it's a 0.5 offense, it's not so stagnant. I think Cade has the ability to be a 10 assist a night guy. From everything that I've watched through his rookie season, I remember watching him at Oklahoma State and the 12 games that we did get to see him this year. He has all the tools to be a 10 assist a night guy if he wants to be. He's got all the tools to be a 30-point per game scorer if he wants to be. So I think for me, a breakout season is team success, making it all-star game, and, just showing people night in and night out, I'm the best player on my team and I'm going to beat you night in and night out. And I think he has all the tools to do that. And it just has me excited for the future. I do love that, we are getting some, coverage from the Hoop Collective podcast on ESPN. Love that. But I wanted to get into what they said about Asar Thompson, right? And I think we both agree. Great player. I know you weren't the highest on him because you were kind of, you didn't know if, the Overtime Elite League was the best talent. But we got to watch Summer League. We saw the Rico Hines clips. I think the one thing I will say where I disagree with, I think he's a better shooter than people are giving him credit for. And I think he's had the last 2-3 months to get better at shooting each and every day. I'm not saying he's going to come out and shoot 40% from 3. But I do think he's more than capable of hitting those corner threes. And, we've debated, whether or not he's going to make the starting lineup or not. But I think the Asar thing, he's going to make an impact day one. That's my opinion.
The only one thing I don't like when people talk about his offensive game, they act like shooting is the whole thing. He's going to be a fantastic playmaker. He's going to push the ball in transition. Playmaking is a part of offense. He's going to finish at the rim. We saw in Summer League him finish over guys. He looked like a freaking superhero, literally flying out of a building. It was unreal, some of those dunks he had. Even one of them, I don't even think he took a step, and he jumped over a 7-footer and threw it down on him. It's unreal. That is part of the offensive game. Him in transition, it's going to be lethal. Him Cade and Jaden Ivey running in transition together, whether he's dropping a dime to one of those guys or finishing a play, like that is all part of the offense game. I mean, the shooting, yeah, like I think you're right. I think with the months being in an NBA gym, being around NBA coaches, his jump shot is going to be fine. And he's going to, I think, if as long as there's no hesitation of him shooting threes when they're wide open or whether he's standing in the corner or whatever, that's a win in my book. Now, if he hesitates and then just passes it off and looks uncomfortable out there, that's going to be a bad sign. But as long as he's comfortable and doesn't hesitate, I don't care about the shooting. I don't care what the percentage is. Just take the shots. But I think people overlook his offensive game, and they're so concerned with him, his shooting numbers and the form and him not, making threes, even though I think he shot like 34 to 35% in the second half of overtime. I think the beginning of the year he shot 29%, but I think it climbed during the season. But they pay so much attention to the shooting and they overlook the rest of his offensive game. And it seems like the only thing they can ever say about him is, well, look at his defense. He's going to make it in league just because of the defense. We know this. We all know this. We all saw him in summer league. We all saw the other footage from overtime. We all saw the Rico Hines stuff. He's going to be a fantastic defender. He's probably going to make it a couple all-NBA defensive teams before he reaches 27 years old. Like, that's how good he is defensively. But don't dismiss him offensively because you question his jump shot when he can finish at the rim. He can run in transition. He's a good playmaker. Those are all part of the offensive package. And I just think that's a part that's being overlooked. But again, I'm glad they're talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of very a vague casual take because you don't know a whole lot about him. And that's fine. But I think when I look at him, the kid works his ass off.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watched any of the Overtime Elite stuff, like the type of workouts that he was doing with Kevin Ollie, dude, it's insane, his work ethic. Like, he gets mad if he doesn't make a shot. Like, he'll be in the gym until he makes that shot. And like, he'll start over until he makes 5 in a row. He doesn't care. Like, I think his work ethic, to me, is what separates him from being a good to a great player, because I think he wants to get better. And he's a very smart basketball player. Like, his IQ is off the charts. Like, his vision, like, I know it was only summer league, but some of the passes he made were just next level passes that you just don't see out of rookie players. Like, I was having a debate with one of my buddies who is a Philadelphia 76ers fan. He's like, dude, when I watch him, he said, I see like a young Ben Simmons. Like, just the way he can run up and down the court, pass the ball, get to the basket at will. He's just like, I don't think he's going to be a bad 3-point shooter like Ben Simmons. He's like, but has all the, the physical tools that you want out of just a forward to, lead your team. And I think his passing is special. His defense, we know it has the possibility to be elite. Like you said, possibly defensive player of the year. Hey, who knows? But I think he's just as important to this core as, anyone that we have mentioned on this podcast so far today. Like, he's a very big piece to what the Pistons are going to do going forward. And like I said in the beginning of this topic, I think he's going to be a contributor day one. I don't know if that means that he's going to start for the Pistons, but I do think he's going to be in games making impactful plays.
I still stick with it. The Ben Simmons comp is pretty interesting, but man, I still see like Andrew Wiggins and Clyde Drexler, just the way he runs the floor. And Clyde Drexler, he's such an underrated player. He was incredible on both ends. Not much of a shooter, but man, damn, he could attack the rim with the best of them. But yeah, I think you're like, we talked about it last week. Asar Thompson is going to be a contributor day one. I think he starts day one just because that playmaking and defense does make sense alongside Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. And also, if you start him, it seems like there's less responsibility as a shooter and as a scorer with those guys, and he could focus on the other great things about his game, the playmaking, running in transition, and the defense. So I see him as a day one starter. But yeah, man, I still hate that they're talking about him, but it is good that the national media about these guys. They deserve the credit. They deserve the praise. It just pisses me off that now everybody's going to be like, man, these guys, they're really, dude, these guys are special. Brian Windhorst is talking about him. It's like, he just made fun of the Pistons a couple months ago. Come on.
I know. I tried warning you about a month ago. I said, just wait, man. They're just going to, the flock's coming. Like it's just gonna get worse from here on out. Like probably like we're probably gonna get like a top 10 list from like CBS Sports or something like that.
Yeah, and have like 4 Pistons on, and you're like, when did this happen? Like, well, we've been watching them. They're pretty good. It's crazy, man. Let's move on though. So the Detroit Pistons have signed Jonte Porter to an Exhibit 10 deal. For people out there who think he's going to be on the roster and that Troy Weaver found a hidden gem, I love your way of thinking. Don't ever change, but there is no chance. I went back and I was watching the TBT with Jonte Porter. He's a high IQ player, man. Like that dude, it kind of sucks that he's not in the NBA, but he has more of like a classic. Like you can tell, like he uses size. He's a lefty. He has a good variety of post moves. He can play in the high post as well from the free throw line. Even has a very consistent shot out to the 3-point line, but he's kind of stiff as an athlete, not like his brother Michael Porter Jr. at all. But Jonte, I think there's a role for him on an NBA team. I just don't think that role really consists of him getting consistent minutes and being a player. But if you were to, like, he seems like he'd be a very good overseas player, but we're talking like maybe an MVP of a league. Like he is that skilled. It's just injuries and lack of athleticism and really mobility, I think. So he knows how to get to his spots, but he did not look like he was 23 years old when he was out on the floor. I thought I was watching someone closer to their 30s, but it's just an Exhibit 10 deal. I'm not going to say he's going to be a player on this team because I don't think so. It's just, let's just see what this guy is and let's get him paid a little bit.
For sure. As you know, I do a lot of G League work. So I was pretty familiar with him because the Pistons did play the Milwaukee Bucks affiliate this week. I do have some notes on him. So he is the younger brother of Michael Porter Jr. He's 23. Okay. So this year with the Wisconsin Herd, he put up 11 points, 11 rebounds, and almost 3 blocks a game, which that's pretty good at the forward position. The one thing with him, when you watch, he loves shooting threes. He shot 28% from 3 on 7 attempts per game. Now, I would be interested to see if maybe he only shot maybe 3, maybe 4 attempts a game. Does it go up to maybe 30, 35%? There could be something there with him. He did play with the Grizzlies, though, in 2021. He played 11 games, but he put up 2 points a game. So, stint in the NBA, he didn't really do a whole lot. But what you guys need to know about him is he's a guy that can stretch the floor, can pass the ball, and he can rim protect. Now, this was a G League trade with the Wisconsin Herd and the Motor City Cruise, and then he immediately got a training camp deal. Now, I'm not going to say he can't make the team because I think there's promise there and he's healthy. But I think most likely he's going to be a big-time contributor for the Motor City Cruise since they just completely depleted their team this week. They made so many trades. They made room for Xavier Simpson so he can be that lead guard. They traded one of their best point guards and Kiefer Sykes to another team. So, Xavier Simpson's going to get, big time minutes with the Cruise. Jonte Porter is probably going to be next to, I can't think of his name right now, the center. It's going to bug me, but I think it's just going to be a big time contributor with the Cruise this year. Maybe he gets that third two-way spot. I'm not sure, but there's definitely promise there with him. It's just he has to stay healthy. He's kind of like his brother. It's back injuries, but he plays nothing like his brother. By the way, he's a way better passer, and he can actually play a little bit of defense. He can play a little bit of defense. So, I mean, he's an intriguing player, but like I know how Pistons fans are. This reminds me of the Jordan Bone talk. Can Jordan Bone be the next Chris Paul? It's just like I'm not going there, but I think he's a body for training camp at the very least. But maybe he does surprise the Pistons, and maybe he puts on a good training camp and he looks good in the preseason. Maybe you have a guy that could possibly be a backup power forward. You never know.
Yeah, see, I'm not going to get my hopes up, but it is kind of interesting though that It's another big man that happens to be left-handed. We have completed the Spider-Man meme. We have 3 6'11" or taller guys that are all 4 and 5s that are left-handed. Like, it's pretty cool to have that on one team, even though he's an Exhibit 10 deal. But yeah, I forgot to mention the shot blocking. Like, and I only watched highlights from TBT, and his shot blocking was actually pretty phenomenal. I will give him that. And the passing is there. You are right. He is a high IQ player. It's a tall hill for him to climb, man. I don't want to get people's hopes up.
Yeah, it's just I think he's a promising player, but I think most likely he's going to spend a lot of time in the G League, as a key contributor for the Motor City Cruise. But like, you never know, man. Like, you could kind of have a Cinderella story where he just dominates in the preseason and he looks great. Like, I would love that for him. Because I know you're like, oh, I want Michael Porter Jr. I want to trade for him. Like, well, how's his younger brother sound?
Hey, I'll take it, dude. I'll take any Porter. I mean, as long as they can play. We do have one final piece of news, and it's the Detroit Pistons have signed former player Hakeem Warwick, one of my absolute favorites, as a pro scout. Now, he won't be scouting prospects. He'll be watching opposing teams and giving information about that opposition, kind of like talking about strategy and like what players like to do on the floor and everything. I just want to, because there is a difference in scouting in the NBA. Not every scout is a guy going to colleges or going overseas and watching guys that could be drafted or, undrafted and make your team or something. But there are other different types of scouts. And yeah, cool for Hakeem Warwick, man. I just have one memory of him, and that was when he was with Syracuse, just coming out of nowhere to block that shot in the corner. I think it was against Kansas. And man, I had such high hopes for him in the NBA. Man, I really did.
Yeah. So I don't really have anything to contribute to this topic because I actually didn't read anything really.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool that the Pistons are bringing, another former player. Like, we talked about it a little bit. It's kind of taken a page out of the Detroit Lions book where there's a lot of former players on this roster. And I think it's great. I think it's cool. But yeah, man, it's cool to see. Like, I've talked to like one scout before, and he was actually an international scout, and he was telling me about Killian Hayes like after the draft, and he was like, I was surprised he went in the first round.
Seriously?
Yeah, he was just like, I didn't think he was going to come out and get drafted personally. He said, I thought he maybe needed another 2 to 3 years to develop over in Ulm in Germany. He's like, I was kind of surprised that he declared.
Wow. I don't need to hear that right now. You already know how I feel about Killian Hayes.
Yeah, he's your favorite player.
Yeah, he is. And he just dropped that nugget of information on me that I'll probably use in a couple of months when we're talking about him during the regular season. But yeah, shout out to Hakeem Warwick, man. Good for him. Again, he is a pro scout. He will not be I believe he won't be scouting prospects. I believe he's more of just going to be the guy that where he'll be probably breaking down film with the team and everything. And again, like I said, going over strategies versus the opposition. But yeah, we can move on to some of these great. Can't wait to talk about this next topic because, it could get me fired up.
Okay. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So Bleacher Report they dropped another list, and Cade Cunningham made it. Top 10 players under 22. This is the third list, I believe, unless it's been 4, that we have talked about on this podcast, strictly from Bleacher Report. Those guys know how to put lists together. They are incredible at putting a list together. But here we go. I'll give you the top 10, starting with number 1. We already know who it is. Victor Wembanyama. Anthony Edwards comes in at number 2. Paolo Banchero. They didn't forget about him this time because they did forget about him on their big man's list. Evan Mobley comes in at number 4. Chet Holmgren at number 5. I'm pretty sure that's going to piss a few people off. LaMelo Ball at number 6. Jalen Williams at number 7. Scoot Henderson at number 8, Cade Cunningham, our boy, at number 9, and then Scotty Barnes at number 10. Jalen Green did not make the list for all you Houston fans that still think he's the best player from the 2021 draft. You guys are absolutely crazy, and this list proves it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this list and Cade Cunningham cracking the top 10?
The Victor Wembanyama glazing needs to stop. He hasn't played a single NBA minute yet. Anthony Edwards should be one. I'm just going to say that first of all. Same with Scoot Henderson. He should not be on this list. It's a joke. Like, yeah, they're promising prospects out of this year's draft, but this should not be in the top 10 for players under 22 years old. I'm just going to say that to start off this conversation. Love that Cade Cunningham was in this list again, but I don't really have any problems with this list whatsoever. It's just that the three guys in there, Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, and Scoot Henderson, I don't think they should be in this list. Nothing against Chet Holmgren, who got injured last year, but he hasn't played a single NBA minute. Same with Victor Wembanyama, and same with Scoot Henderson. There's three, slots that you could fix there, and maybe Jalen Green makes it. I don't know. There's a lot of great talent under the age of 22 years old. I was kind of surprised that they didn't put a Benedict Mathurin or anything like that in there. But hey, man,
I'm surprised because they just did a list though where they had Asar Thompson and Amin Thompson ahead of Scoot Henderson, didn't they? For highest ceilings of their draft class. It's so weird. I know it's different authors putting this stuff together. But I wish we would get an explanation. And I mean, maybe they did, but with the graphic that we have on the screen, there is no explanation. Because for me, Evan Mobley at number 4, I get it. Defensively, the dude he's good. Even though Cavaliers didn't look that great defensively when Jared Allen went out. But hey, Evan Mobley, I believe he made an all defensive team. So he's probably going to be in the defensive player of the year consideration. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. just won one, so who knows? Anybody could win one. But Evan Mobley at number 4 seems a little high to me because he's really not a two-way player. I think if you are considered one of the best players under 22, you have to be able to be, especially if you're in the top 5, you got to be a two-way player. You got to be able to carry the team on both sides. And Evan Mobley, he just has not shown the offensive abilities, that side of his game where you can say, yeah, we're going to give him the ball and he's going to go get us a bucket. Evan Mobley cannot do that. And, he looks great in the role that he has because he has two guys in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell that can do that. They're able to hide him offensively where, if we had seen a team where it was Evan Mobley was the guy, he would not be this high on the list. Same goes for Jalen Williams. He's a fantastic scorer. He looks amazing for Oklahoma City. I just don't know if he brings it. I don't know if he brings it on both sides. And Cade Cunningham, he does. That's why I think he should be higher on the list. Even if you just kept the list the same, I think Cade should be in the top 5 over Chet Holmgren. He should be there and ahead of Evan Mobley. I'm not going to say anything about Paolo Banchero because he is pretty awesome offensively. But again, he's one of these guys too where can he get it done defensively? If he's number 3 on your list, there should be without a doubt, you should be yeah, this guy gets it done on both ends. But I think there is doubt in a lot of people's minds. I don't know. It's just when I see a list like this, the guys that should be the highest are guys that can play both sides of the ball. That's really what I'm just trying to make of it. Unless you're such an elite scorer where you're on a Steph Curry level where you're dude, his offense is so great. We have to put him up here. But Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama, I think Anthony Edwards takes a leap defensively. He's kind of showed it with Team USA, and he kind of showed it last year too a little bit. Those are guys that get it done on both ends. And again, if you're going to be this high on a list, you should be able to get it done on both ends.
Yeah, I don't know how Tyrese Maxey doesn't make this list. He's under the age of 22 years old, and I think you could put him in for Scoot Henderson. Because I don't think Cade would be 9 if I had to remake this list. No. I think it'd probably be top 5, but you could put Tyrese Maxey in this list. I just don't really understand how you put rookies that haven't played a single minute yet on a top 10 list. But hey, that's Bleacher Report for you. But overall, I'm just happy that Cade Cunningham made the list. Like I said, you're going to see all these media companies, say Cade's top 5 in this, he's top 10 in this, he's our top 10 player of the year. We're going to bet him for most improved. I can already see it, man. It's good to see. Happy for Cade, but not surprised by the media pulling this shit.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more I could say about it. I don't know. I think when you put a list together like this, you got to put the guys that can play both sides. Like, I mean, I don't know. We can just move on. I don't want to hurt my brain continuing to talk.
Because you don't want to
talk in circles.
Yeah, for sure. We do have some. I don't know if we have any more topics, but if we don't, we do have some pretty good Q&A questions from people that
we do have 2 more topics. Okay. Yeah, so it's who do you think will have the longest career in the NBA out of James Wiseman, Killian Hayes, or Marvin Bagley? You don't have to go into detail, but out of those 3 names, who, in your opinion, will have the longest NBA career?
James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, and Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I'm probably going to go with Wiseman.
Okay. Why do you say James Wiseman?
Because I think he has the tools, if he can put it all together, to be a guy where he can get you, let's just say, maybe a 15 and 10 a night. Maybe he gets better at blocking shots. I think there's a lot of potential that hasn't been untapped yet. And like we were talking last week, he's only played, I think this would be his rookie season. I think he finally played 82 games out of 3 years because that's how injured he's been. But I think Wiseman will have the longer career. I think you could make an argument for Bagley too. I think Bagley could, play another, 5 to 7 years of just being like a bench piece, being that kind of like that 6th man that maybe Corliss Williamson, for example, just get you those points and, just play some solid minutes off a bench for any NBA team because he has an elite skill and that's scoring in the post. So I think you could make an argument between Bagley and Wiseman. And as for Killian, I just don't know, man. Like he's to me, I'm going to use this analogy and don't hate me. He reminds me of, the Airheads, the candy. It reminds me of the mystery. You don't know what you're going to get.
Oh man.
You just don't know. Like Killian could play another 10 years as a backup point guard and I could be completely wrong. Or he could be back in Europe. I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to be on this basketball team. I don't know if he's just going to be a 3rd string point guard. And if someone gets hurt, next man up. I just don't know. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. But I would probably say Wiseman, like 2 and Killian 3, if I had to rank them.
The difference between the Airhead, the Mystery Airhead, and Killian Hayes, the Mystery Airhead is still pretty good. Like, let's be honest. It's delicious. And my answer was Marvin Bagley. And I did originally have James Wiseman because, one, you can't teach height, and he's super athletic. And I think there's always going to be a team that's going to take a chance on him, especially in the beginning of his career. I mean, he's only 21 years old right now. He might be 22, but he's still he's 22. He's still really young. So for the next 3, 4, 5 years, teams are always going to give him a chance. But my answer actually is Marvin Bagley. And because I think he has the personality of a guy who would be comfortable sitting on the bench, something you had alluded to, and just collecting a check and getting very little playing time. I'm not saying that's his career right now, but in 3, 4 seasons, you could just see Marvin Bagley just collecting checks and being a journeyman around the NBA, sitting on a bench. But I do also think that there's a world where Marvin Bagley, because I got this topic from Willie Cauley-Stein, who had recently said he decided to go play over in Europe because the game isn't about the individual player. It's more of a team game. And I kind of think Marvin Bagley would fit into a system like a European system where it is more of a team game, where it's not everything isn't just under a microscope for him for being the number 2 overall pick. But I also think James Wiseman can end up playing overseas too and having a long career. If it doesn't work in Detroit, I know I said that as long as he's in the next few seasons, he'll probably always get a chance. But if he has if he's underwhelming in Detroit or, he has a bad attitude, you could see him going overseas and having a long career. But my answer would be Marvin Bagley, just because he does have the tools to be a good offensive player. And at moments, he's a strong rebounder. He's really not much defensively. We already all know that. But he also just has the personality where he's like, you know what? I had my moment. I'm just going to keep collecting these checks and staying in shape and playing basketball. Because why not?
Yeah, it's so weird. I remember during Karl Anthony Towns draft, there was debates who was better, him or Jahlil Okafor, and Cat's still in the league, and Jahlil Okafor's playing overseas. Um, like the big man in the NBA, like their lifespan isn't that long if you don't have an elite skill. And I would say Bagley has an elite skill, and that's being a post player offensively. But I think Wiseman, someone sent me a picture of him, and dude, he looks like he lost 30 pounds. Like
really?
He looks really skinny. Like he's been in the weight room all summer. He looks very slim. He lost his weight, so maybe he's going to be more energetic. Maybe he'll be more active on the boards out there. Because when he got to Detroit, I mean, I'm not saying that like he was fat or heavy, but he was like close to 260. I think he slimmed down to like the 240s, 230s. So I was kind of surprised by that, but it's just like, wow, man, that's crazy. But
for sure.
I think my answer is still going to be Wiseman. I still have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good answer. Like I said, it's either James Wiseman. I thought about the two, but I'm just going to go Marvin Bagley just because you are right. He does have that one skill set where he's a very good he's a good low post player. He has good footwork. I think he has less tunnel vision than James Wiseman. And it just personality wise, it seems like he enjoys the NBA life, and he would pretty much do whatever he could to at least remain on an NBA bench collecting checks. But we do have one final topic, and this is going to be a fun one for me, and I think it's going to be a fun one for you. But what Pistons have a lasting impact on the fans in a short amount of time? It can be positive or negative, or you can even just say they had a positive, or you can just say they had a lasting impact on you personally. I got actually 5 players that I wrote down that I think that have had lasting impacts for me as a fan in a short amount of time. And we're talking like just 2 or 3 seasons playing for the Pistons. Can't be anything longer than that. But so I got Brandon Jennings, John Barry, because I loved watching John Barry in Detroit, man. That dude was just a sniper, man. Josh Smith, because he did have a negative impact on Detroit. And unfortunately, he's one of those guys that will be talked about forever when you talk about the Detroit Pistons. Blake Griffin and then Clifford Robinson. And then I also want to mention Mehmet Okur as well. He only played 2 years, but that's a guy that when I think of the Detroit Pistons, I think of Okur. I just think about his time there and how I really wish he had stayed in Detroit. It would have been, I think we still would have been competing with him on the team. In that bridge from being a great team to being an embarrassment of the league, that would have been a shorter bridge with him here. But who are your guys that have had a lasting impact on you?
So you said 2 years, like before you said 2 years, like the first player that popped in my head was Rasheed Wallace.
Yeah.
But you said 2 years, so
2 to 3 seasons.
I'll say Anthony Tolliver. I think won a lot of fans over. I thought when they waived Josh Smith and you trade Tony Mitchell and you don't know who Anthony Tolliver is, and they go on this winning streak, and then Twitter starts this trend, the Tolliver effect. I think that was like really positive Pistons basketball when we didn't really have a lot. Like if you remember that season, they started like 5-23. They weren't winning anything. And you trade for this guy that's just splashing threes and playing great defense. So I think Anthony Tolliver was one off the top of my head that was impactful for me, not for his stats, but just his personality and his locker room presence. Another one I thought of was Ish Smith.
Ooh, yeah.
Ish Smith was probably one of my favorite Pistons of recent memory, just because I got to meet him a couple times at the game. Dude, he's such a nice player. Like, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Like, guy's always in a good mood, always smiling, positive. I just really enjoyed watching him play as a backup point guard for the Pistons. I think one more I'll do. This is tough. I'll go Marcus Morris.
Ooh, okay. Nice one.
Yeah, I really liked Marcus Morris a lot. I liked his toughness. I liked that he just embraced, just the culture and the city of Detroit, and saying that, you know, Phoenix fans aren't like Detroit fans. Detroit fans are better. That's why I fuck with Detroit. I love both of the, you know, the Morris twins, but Marcus has a special place in my heart. When him and Tobias were, you know, the small forward and power forward, and they didn't know who to guard, like those two were just getting buckets.
Oh, dude, Mike James, I think, should be added to one of our lists as well. He had a lasting. Eldon Campbell, for me, I mean, big easy, dude. I'm so sorry I forgot about you. But I'm looking at Ish Smith's numbers. Guess how many games he played for the Detroit Pistons?
How many?
219.
Wow.
In 3 years, he played 219 games, started 67. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't really think of like a Piston that only played for the Pistons for 2 years, and I think I just named, like, you could even, I don't know if there's a sicko out there would say Avery Bradley, but
or like Ben.
think.
Well, for negative, I mean, if you're talking like a negative impact, like where you're like,
yeah,
well, because I mean that's why I mentioned Josh Smith. Like, I mean, there was so much hope for him, but it just did not materialize. Bob Sherrill was another one of those guys that I loved watching the Detroit Pistons, even though they did trade Clifford Robinson to get Bob Sherrill. I was just like, damn, dude, I love Cliffy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been so many great players, so many fun players that have only been here for 2-3 years, and they leave for some reason. You just wish they had stayed longer. You're like, even Ish Smith, man, if that dude just had a jump shot, he probably would have been one of the best point guards in the NBA. I truly believe that. He just cannot score, though. It's unfortunate.
What about Kwame Brown?
Hey, I mean, dude,
shout out to Kwame. Dude, like, he's funny. I don't know if any of you guys follow him on Twitter, but like, he makes these videos in his car, bro. I lose it every time. Like I'll just see a Kwame Brown video, and it's just the funniest thing. Like, I enjoy him more on social media than I did on the basketball court, because on social media, dude, like, he's just such a funny guy.
Dude, so I forget what stat I was looking up, but the Pistons were actually a pretty good defensive team when he was on the floor for them during his 2 seasons. Like, someone was like, well, they were just bad defensively. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I know, but Kwame Brown made them passable defensively. He just had tiny hands. But yeah, Kwame Brown, dude, he's a great follow. Oh, man. But do we have any Q&A questions, man?
We do. We have one from Alan, and I feel like we've talked about this a couple of times. Like, what's a possible forward that the Pistons can acquire? And I know some people in the chat were talking about Jaden McDaniels, which I don't think is possible, just because I think he's so valuable for the Timberwolves. But I wanted to kind of look up, you know, free agents that are available, because I don't really think the Pistons are gonna like go out and try to trade for a power forward, personally. But do you have any off the top of your head?
We've talked about Brandon Clark before. I think he's gettable. Bobby Portis, he has such a cheap contract. He'd be amazing in Detroit. Xavier Tillman, I don't think he would be great necessarily in Detroit, but he's a solid player. Are we talking about like potential starters for the Detroit Pistons?
I'm not entirely sure. I just think I think a lot of people aren't sold on the idea of Isaiah Stewart being a long-term power forward. That's just what I gather from fans. Like, they like everyone in the starting lineup, but they just kind of want to upgrade that position. I've said Lauri Markkanen, which I know is not realistic, but he would fit seamlessly. Like, I can't really think of a power forward off the top of my head that's gettable. Because most of the power forwards that would make this team better, they're not really gettable. Like, you're not gonna get like a Jeremy Grant for cheap. Like, if you were to trade for him, even though you have to wait until like December to trade for him. But you know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna get like a premier power forward to pair next to a Bojan. I think they're just gonna ride with Stu, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I said before, I think Stewart ultimately would be a better role player off the bench. And I think right now, if the starting lineup, I think we had a starting lineup last week that was projected where it was Cade and Ivy in the backcourt, Asar, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren. If that's the starting 5, I do think Isaiah Stewart is the weakest of those 5, just because I mean, you and I both believe in the shooting. We believe that's going to happen. We like his defense. We like the energy. He just screams, I'd be better off the bench. But yeah, I think Brandon Clark would be an upgrade, even though he doesn't really have the range. And I think he's more of a 5. But like, I'm looking at some of these guys on the list. Like Pascal Siakam would be pretty cool. Christian Wood, even though we've already tried that experiment, that was all right. Lauri Markkanen would be huge for the Detroit Pistons. But I mean, I don't know, maybe like a John Collins, because he's also in Utah now, and they got Taylor Hendricks and Lauri Markkanen. Like they got a lot of guys at the 4. And then I'm just looking at, like Rui Hachimura, Jonathan Kuminga. I'm not really in love with either of those players. Obi Toppin, but again, I think he's a better bench piece. I don't know. There's not really too many. You're right. There's not just too many guys that would, if you're looking for a starter, it would be pretty hard to find. But another guy for Memphis that I think would be pretty interesting, and he can stretch the floor, is Santi Aldama. I had him in fantasy last year. He's pretty good. He played 77 games last year, averaged 21 minutes per game. He's a solid player for the Memphis Grizzlies, and I don't know, he might be kind of underrated. He might be pretty good. He's a good defensive player too.
Yeah, it's just I'm looking at the power forwards, like throughout just the top 50 power forwards in the NBA, and like the only one that I could possibly see the Pistons getting, because you have to remember they don't have that much cap space. It's an OKC player, and that's Darius Baisley. I think that's just kind of like an under the radar guy that you could possibly get. Maybe you trade for him, because I don't think you're not going to get like a top power forward. You're not getting a top 10 power forward. Like you're not getting Giannis. You're not getting Anthony Davis. You're not getting Sabonis. You're not getting like a Christian Wood or Julius Randle or Pascal Siakam. I just don't think you are. But it's probably like in a tier 5 type of power forward. You would probably get like a guy that's like really under the radar that you probably haven't heard of. It just doesn't get like an opportunity. Like maybe even a Dario Saric. I don't know. I'm just spitting. I'm spitballing at this point.
No, I would like Darius is it Baisley or Basley?
Yeah, it's Baisley.
Okay, yeah. I see it now. He I've talked about him a few times on this podcast. 6'8", little over 200 pounds, can stretch the floor, not very he's at 37%. He was 37% from 3 last year, and I believe he's on the Phoenix Suns now. I think he was actually traded. I think he only played 7 games for him though, and he played center. But yeah, he had one. His second year in the league, he averaged 14 and 7. He did shoot the ball pretty terribly, but yeah, I think you're right. Like a guy like that, he might be on the Pistons' radar, but I don't know. Like you're right. It's one of these all-stars. It just seems like it's such a pipe dream.
You know who I would take a gamble on and trade for?
Who's that?
Alexei Pokusevski from OKC.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I would take a gamble on Poku just because like when I watch him, like when he has a great highlight, it's a great highlight. But like when he has a bad highlight, you're like, holy shit, how's this guy an NBA player? I think Poku would be interesting. I just think a lot of Pistons fans just aren't sold on Isaiah Stewart, and I don't really understand why. I don't know if it's maybe the offense, maybe him being undersized. I don't really understand. I haven't really got like a strong opinion from a fan explaining to me why they don't think Isaiah Stewart should be the starting power forward. I've heard some people say Bagley should be the starting power forward. It's just like I don't know, man. It's just I'd rather just roll with Stu at the power forward, see what's there. You know, you got healthy Cade coming back. You got a brand new coach. You got to remember Casey's not going to be the coach, so maybe Stewart won't be relied on as much to, score, 13 points a night or, 10 points a night, whatever he did average last year. I don't remember, but I'm fine with Isaiah Stewart being the starting power forward. I mean, like if you wanted to take a chance, like I think Poku would be a guy you could trade for, possibly.
God, that'd be incredible. I would love that.
He's so athletic too.
Dude, in fantasy, you can use him at like 4 positions. It's incredible. Like it's shooting guard through center. Yeah, like I've said, I think if I was Monty Williams, I would start Bojan at the 4. I know it sucks defensively, but I think bringing Isaiah Stewart off the bench means you can give less minutes to Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman, and your front court depth looks a lot better if Isaiah Stewart is the guy coming off the bench versus those two right now. But if it comes down to Marvin Bagley or Isaiah Stewart, if people were to ask me, I would rather start Isaiah Stewart. He's the better. He can spread the floor, plays with a ton of energy, and just has that motor always going, man.
Yeah, like I said, it's just hard because like when you look at that power forward landscape, like you're gonna have to trade for a power forward. Like,
Yep.
Bravo just mentioned like OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby is one of those guys where the Pistons don't have the assets to trade for him. And what I mean by that is you're not gonna give them like a Jalen Duren or a Jaden Ivey for an OG Anunoby. Like, you want to try to see what you have in your core. You don't want to try to give up for an established player like OG, who I think would be amazing on this team. It's just you're not going to get him for cheap. Like, the Raptors turned down 4 first-round picks for OG Anunoby. Like, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I feel like we've talked about this on the podcast before. I do feel like this is the year you see what you have with everybody.
Yeah.
If Cade's a top 25 player, then you make the move for one of those type of all-star guys that push you over the top if you think the team is ready. But this year, I don't see it happening. Maybe next year, or especially the year following, but not next year.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It's interesting, but like I've been seeing these debates among fans where like they just don't want Isaiah Stewart to start. And it's just like I don't understand it. Like, to me, I think he's a very versatile defender. I believe Pistons Fleet, who they're a really good follow on Twitter, they had posted a stat where like Isaiah Stewart's like a top 5 defender, and some of the defenders that he's up there with is like Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., and like I think his block percentage is like really high. But I'm pretty high on Isaiah Stewart. That's why I had him in my starting 5 last week when we were talking. I had him at the power forward.
Did you that was your projected starting lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. It was a good lineup. We talked about that last week.
Yeah, I just we need basketball back, man. These topics are getting rough.
Yeah, they are. They are.
It really is, man. I think we have like another week before training camp, maybe a week and a half before training camp to start, and we'll start seeing more highlights and clips of these guys practicing together. But man, it's just I don't know how much. Yeah, we will. You know, the beat reporters will be down there getting clips.
Yeah, but I felt like Troy Weaver runs like a really tight ship where it's like, no, we're not letting anything get leaked out.
Well, media is not allowed to watch them practice, but they're allowed
okay.
to. They're allowed to watch them after shoot around and ask them questions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how many more times I can talk about why I feel Isaiah Stewart should be in the starting lineup. Like, I think I've talked about it at nauseum this summer, and it's like the second day of fall, man. It's just like, you guys, like he just got an extension. He's going to be on this team long term. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't have a problem with him as a player. I like him as a glue guy for this team.
I do too. Like I told you, the Nick Collison of this team.
Oh God.
Yeah. Hey. Nick Collison played an important role. Okay. Isaiah Stewart is here to do
it. I got more of a Kevon Looney type, but that's just me.
No, that's interesting. I like that. We got any more questions?
No, people they're watching, but they're not asking questions. Bravo does have a question, and we talked about this in the beginning of the podcast. How do you guys feel about this trade? Buddy Hield, Indiana is trying to move him, plus several second-round picks for Marvin Bagley and Killian Hayes.
I mean, I would take it, but I feel like in order really to make it work, you would have to trade Bojan or Alec Burks to really make it work with Buddy Hield. It's too many skill position players and not enough minutes to go around. But I like that trade. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think with Indiana, they're probably going to ask for at least a first round pick because I think they should. Several seconds, Marvin Bagley and Killian Hayes. I just don't know what Indiana wants to do in terms of like what type of assets are they looking for? Like, are they looking for more scoring at the two guard position? Are they looking for a contract that maybe a player has signed a long term contract and they can just swap? Or are they looking for draft capital? I don't know. Marvin Bagley is under contract for I think this year and next. Killian Hayes is due a rookie scale extension, and I don't think Indiana would want Killian Hayes and Tyrese Halliburton together. I just don't. I think Indiana's backup point guard's better than Killian Hayes at this point. I think if you're the Pistons, you're going to have to do way better. Like, if you want Buddy, you're probably going to have to throw in, several seconds because we can't trade first. And you're going to have to buck up and throw Alec Burks in there, I think. Or maybe a Joe Harris. You're going to have to throw in something more enticing for them to even consider it because he's one of the best three-point shooters in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think the contract works though. If you trade Joe Harris for Buddy Hield straight up, I think they're both getting 19 million a year.
Yeah, I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's going to be traded to the Pistons. And like I said, from an asset standpoint, I just don't think the Pistons want to trade key players for a guy that's going into a contract year at 32 years old.
You never know. If he was left-handed and 6'9", they would.
Oh, we just got the funniest comment. I love Ben, man. He was causing trouble a couple weeks ago with the Jaden Ivey question. And now he's saying Killian Hayes backing up Halliburton would send his confidence to the Shadow Realm. If you guys don't get the Shadow Realm reference, then I don't know what to tell you. But the fact that Ben knows what the Shadow Realm is, shout out to him, man. He's OG.
Dude, that would just, if you're going to be mean, yeah, you're going to send Killian Hayes to Indiana. That would just be,
oh, man.
For him. My God. He probably wouldn't even show up. He'd just be like, never mind. I can't do this anymore.
I don't know, man. I think Buddy's just, I said it in the top of this podcast. I think Buddy is going to be involved in a Damian Lillard trade because the Raptors said they're more than willing to trade for Damian Lillard, and that would be freaking hilarious if that's where he ends up.
Dude, I don't know. I think Phoenix.
Wouldn't that be funny though? They trade for Kawhi, he leaves, and then they have to rebuild. And they trade for Dame, and Dame stays there, and then he's like, I want out. Like, that would be so funny.
Dude, what do you think about like Damian Lillard saying that no matter what team he goes to, he's going to ask for a trade out of it to get to Miami?
Here's my thing. If you want contract flexibility, don't sign the max contract.
Yep.
Like, you signed a max contract with Portland, and things aren't going the way you wanted it. Now, I'm not going to say Dame is wrong for asking a trade. Portland has done a poor job of building a team around him. And I think it's more of a GM standpoint thing where, they get the number 2 pick and they can't flip it. I think if they would have flipped it to try to get maybe they go get a Brandon Ingram, for example, for the number 2 pick or something like that, that shows Dame that, like, hey, at least they're trying. They didn't even try to trade that pick. Like, they drafted Scoot Henderson, who's a point guard, just like Damian Lillard. Like, you know what? We don't really care. We have our backcourt in the future of Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. If you want to be here, great. If you don't, then we'll trade you. But we're going to trade you on our terms. I think this whole thing, it's Miami or bust type of mentality. I think it's hilarious because he probably will end up in Toronto because Portland apparently isn't even picking up the phone for Miami. And Miami's like, let us know what you want. We'll try to move it. And like Miami doesn't, they're trying to get him for pennies on the dollar. Like they don't want to give away a key player to Portland. Like they don't want to give away Jimmy Butler. They don't want to give away like a Bam Adebayo. They're trying to give him like Tyler Hero and a couple protected first. Like you got to do better than that if you're Miami.
I mean, But do you though? Because like that because they know Dame wants out. Like they don't have to give up a ton of. I think Tyler Hero's a pretty good player. I mean, that seems like a pretty. You're not going to get much. I mean, you should get a lot for Damian Lillard, but the fact that he has already said, "Look, I don't want to be here," you're going to get less than what he's for. I think the biggest mistake was holding on to the backcourt of him and CJ McCollum for too long. They were fun to watch, and they did get to the postseason a lot. It's just that trade, like you waited way too long to trade CJ McCollum, and I don't know what they were trying. It just, yeah, it sucks for Damian Lillard, man. You should have tried to make it work. Him and LaMarcus Aldridge, they probably would have really had something there if those two had made it work in Portland. They just clashed.
Yeah.
They just meshed up at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's just it's a whole mess. I wish the Pistons had a little bit of cap space to, like, we were told, like, we're gonna have all this cap space. Like, I would have loved for the Pistons to have a little bit of cap space to maybe absorb a bad contract and get some future assets. But we have, like, I don't know, like 100 or 300,000. We don't have anything, but I don't think the Pistons are going to get involved because they don't have the cap space to do it unless they flip like a Bojan or a Joe Harris to another team, which I don't think they'll do.
Oh, man, I'm just re-looking at this trade. Portland got Josh Hart back for CJ McCollum, and then he dipped to New York. Not a very good trade, but yeah, they're terrible. They did Damian Lillard such a disservice.
Yeah, I think firing, I can't think of their coach's name, Terry Stotts. I don't really think he was the problem. I think he was a great coach. I just think it was always a talent thing with them. Like, nothing against Chauncey. I think Chauncey's going to be a really great coach in the NBA. But I just think the way they built the team, it made no sense.
Yeah, it's a terrible team. Like, it's a terrible for Damian Lillard. If he's your star player, you did, like we've already been saying, you did not surround him with the right talent, the right players.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just, I just want this Damian Lillard madness to stop personally. Because I feel like that's all anyone's talking about. Like, oh, where's he going to get traded? Is he going to the Raptors? Is he going to the Suns? If he goes to the Suns, man, I'll lose my shit. I will absolutely lose my shit.
I don't even know how they would do that. But hey,
I think trade Booker. Wouldn't that be funny?
Kevin Durant's like, look, I always wanted to play with Damian Lillard, so peace, Booker. I'm like, what? That would be nuts. Do you think Phoenix would be worse off if they traded Devin Booker for Damian Lillard?
Yeah, probably, because Beal can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
I got one more question, then we can wrap it up, because Bravo's the only one actually asking any questions, so he's an OG. He said, do you feel the Detroit Pistons could surprise the NBA this year with some impressive wins? I do. I think that the Pistons do show up to certain teams like Golden State. They have their number. I don't know what it is. Sadiq Bey hit the game winner last season against Golden State. I think when they play top tier NBA talent, they show up. Like, I feel like every time I watch a Boston Celtics and a Detroit Pistons game, they always bring it. And it feels like the games are always close. So I do think they can surprise a couple, contending teams. Like, they beat the Nuggets and the Heat last year. Both of those teams are in the NBA Finals. So they only had 17 wins. 2 of those 17 wins came from both teams that were in the NBA Finals. So, yeah, Bravo. I do think that, the Pistons can surprise some NBA teams this year.
Oh, same. It's going to be God, I cannot wait for the season to start. I'm just thinking about it. Like, I'm thinking of them, like, for some reason I got the Kings on my mind, and that would be a fun win. But then you're saying like the Nuggets, the Miami Heat. I want to see them play Orlando and beat them. I want to see LaMelo lose in Detroit as well. There's a lot of it's going to be a lot of fun.
I was going to say, like, the Rockets, even though the Rockets aren't a top team, I feel like if the Pistons beat the Rockets, that'll be just on Twitter. It'll be so toxic, but it'll be so fun as a Pistons fan just to like log on and see all the Rockets fans complaining.
Yep.
But why don't you tell the people where they can find the podcast, how they can support it, and where to follow you at?
Yeah, please follow me on Twitter at Lance Caprosi. Also follow me on Threads at Lance Caprosi. But thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Peace.